Hi everyone, sorry for being a few minutes late, but I'm just trying to figure out, because I will have Sherrie McCarthy online, and she's been live with me before, and we always have this thing with her phone, it doesn't know how to do a landscape, so I always have to figure out, okay, how to do a live video in a portrait mode, and just fingers crossed that I'll be able to get her on. Because I'm in portrait mode, I cannot actually plug in my earbuds because conveniently they are located at the bottom of my phone. So if you hear my fridge or the lovely buzzing of my AC, I'm so sorry. It's really too hot and too humid to turn either of them off. I need my fridge, I need my ice cubes, and I also need my AC, because yeah, it's been incredibly hot. So I see her live, so let's see if this works. First of all, it's been such a fun week seeing everybody sign up for the giveaway, and like I said before, like the different things people sign up for, it's really interesting, and my brain always wants to make sense of things, so I'm like, this is interesting, especially when it's people that I know via like acquaintances. I'm like, oh, that is interesting. Why would you sign up for that? I know for that. So it's really an interesting process. But it's also great to see that if you offer such a variety of things, like some people will go on like, I want all of that. I would just give you all of that. And some people will just go like, you know what? No, I'll just pick this little thing. This is what I want. So yeah, it's just been really fun seeing their process. Okay. I'm gonna see if I can get Sherrie to join us, and be very aware that Sherrie and I have talked about what we're going to talk about as we usually just jump in. Sherrie.
Oh, it worked first try!
Yes, on the first try. It didn't even take that long. Oh, well, guess what? You're
This
not
is a
on a boat,
record!
right?
No, I'm not. That's true. I'm actually in a house at the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah, so I think the not being on the boat thing might actually work.
Oh, go figure. Seriously, you
Yeah.
have decent internet connection. What? Although, you know, in Europe, we had a really crappy connection the entire time. So I'm not entirely convinced that it's a boat problem and maybe a North American versus Europe problem. I
It
went
could
there.
be, or maybe it's just like sometimes when I'm like, when internet is not really working for me, I'm like, what is that? Is that a sign that I should be offline and do something else? Uh,
I do. I have to admit. Although sometimes I'm like, okay, am I just looking for a sign because I don't want to do this? That's when it starts getting like, murky. I'm like, is this really not a sign or is this a test?
yeah,
How
and
badly do you want this? Are you willing to go through with it?
yeah, and usually I believe like I have that sometimes when I put up like really lengthy Instagram posts. And then
Mm-hmm.
my intuition is already going like, are you sure this is what you want to share? Is this the way you want to tell this story? And then like Instagram just freezes, gone.
And you're like, okay, okay.
And then I'm like, oh wait a second, my intuition was already like sort of poking me, saying maybe this is the wrong angle. Then I write it
Yes.
again, um, in a way that feels better and more aligned with me. And then I'm like, oh, wait a second now. So I do believe that sometimes, but yeah, sometimes I don't know whether I'm looking for signs or whether I just don't believe somebody is having control at somewhere.
I mean, it's interesting because I can segue a little bit into the course, but that's exactly what the course is a little bit about as well. Not just about the science part, but how do you know if this is what
Yeah.
you really want, or if you're starting to talk yourself out of things? Are you really in alignment? Is this fear talking, or is this actual,
Yes.
no, this makes common sense, don't do this talking? Because it can be quite
Yeah.
difficult to know the difference. I
Yeah.
mean, for me, it's always like, am I throwing up these barriers just to get myself to stop? Because I always like, okay, I'll go for a sign, I'll go for a sign, I'll go for a sign. And then the signs are all lined up, but then it gets difficult. And I'm one of those people who things always came very easily for me. So when things get difficult, I try to tell myself, oh, it's a sign, when it's not a sign. It's just, no, Sherrie, you need to work a little bit harder, push through. And I like to believe it's the universe trying to find out if I really want this or not, you know? But
Yeah.
it
Yeah, I
can be
know.
very, very difficult.
Yeah, but that's the thing, like because in other occasions that is a sign.
Exactly. And then
Yeah.
how do you know,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I normally go with, okay, I'll try two more times. And if it still doesn't work, it really is a sign. It's not just the universe testing me. And then I'm like, hey, we're on the right level now, right? You're like, universe, I'm quite clear. I'm telling you, that I will take it as a
Oh, that's a
sign if
good
you stop
one.
me two more times.
Mhm. Oh, that's a good one because that's the thing. It's like like I have the same struggle. Like, is this ego telling me I don't want this? Is
Yes.
this fear speaking? Is this like one of the reasons like things I had like epiphanies I had was that it's very easy for well, not easy but I see like a pattern in my life that I started working because like I don't know if you followed that whole thing. I mean I know like probably not because you've been busy with other things. Your life's been pretty occupied lately. But
Mhm.
I did this tarot challenge.
Oh, you know what?
That's
I wanted
amazing.
to sign up and I didn't, but I was like, oh, that is so cool. But yeah, with everything else going on, I didn't get a
Okay.
chance. But
Well,
I was actually, it was one
I'm
of those times
turning
I'm like, I
it.
should have.
Yeah, but I'm turning it into a book right now, so I'll give you a copy as soon as it's done.
Oh,
Yeah.
love it.
Yes, but one of the things that showed up for me constantly was teamwork and like collaborating, which is funny because this is of course is a collaboration. Like teamwork for me has always been a thing. It's always been because I
Hmm.
somehow always end up the leader of the pack. That's not something that's a very reluctant role I have, which is funny because when I do tarot, the Emperor always comes up for me,
Hmm.
which is of course embracing
Hi, Kelly.
embracing that. But who was that? Is it Kelly?
Yeah, I just saw Kelly pop up.
Oh, hi,
Maybe she's
Kelly.
gone.
Speaking of collaboration, Kelly is also one, of course, that we both work with. So yeah, what came up for me was like, you need to collaborate, you need to collaborate, you need to collaborate, you need to collaborate. And I'm like, yeah, but I also like in the past, like, I have examples of it going wrong. So
Hmm.
like the collateral damage is unforeseen, you know? And then I did this birthday spread. Well, I was sick my entire birthday weekend. So I did on Monday. And what came up was a card. And I know that it depends on the tarot deck that you have, what card it is. But for me, when I pull the Son of Wands, which is the Knight of Wands in my tarot deck, it
Hmm.
stands for like somebody who charms you into going on an adventure, but who isn't really the way they present themselves. So be careful here.
Right.
And the
Hmm.
funny thing was on Friday, so my birthday was of course Saturday. So on Friday I did like a last year spread, and one of the things that came up as a lesson um, was the Son of Wands. So I was like, well, yeah, I have examples that in the last year, like I've been collaborating with people who turned out to have that Son of Wand quality that they kept
Hmm.
promising me like rainbows and like if you just work with me, your life is going to be so much better. Um, and I saw that as a pattern that I've had for years, right? And then of course, like when I did my what's coming up for the next year, for the upcoming year, so my 33rd year, I said what lessons coming up? And again that card. So I was like, oh great, so I didn't learn the pattern yet. Uh, because I will still have people who want to work with me and then promise me like try to charm me into working with them. But I think I have the thing now. It's the whole they promise me things that are not really realistic. So that came up for me. I don't know how we ended how I it made sense when I started this particular story.
But maybe it
Um,
was actually the moral of the story. Have you read Rebecca Campbell? Do you read Rebecca Campbell? And her
no,
triple
no, I didn't.
Smackdown. Oh, Light is the New Black and Rise, Sister Rise. Brilliant, brilliant books. I adore both of them. And one thing she says is that the teacher actually is the person who's got the triple Smackdown. So actually, the people who are talking about the things, like in this case, recognizing people and going with, you know what, you're promising one thing, but you're actually behaving like another, but I don't find that out till later. This might be your triple Smackdown. So you might have to do this like 2 or 3 years. But afterwards, you will be such an expert in this that you'll be able to help other people recognize the patterns way before it actually happens. But the teachers need the triple smackdown before they can actually go forward and be able to talk about it. Because the first time you're just like, oh, now I'm starting to recognize this as a pattern. The second time you're like, how did I not figure this out? And the third time you realize, oh, okay, just a continual process that I will continually go through and go through and go through, each time deeper and deeper and deeper, and able to help people with it afterwards. But Yeah, it's the triple smackdown. There's no getting away from it. And I think this is something that we as writers and people in general and women in particular, we think, okay, now I know it. I know it. I got the pattern down.
Yeah,
I'm going to go forward. I'm going to fight this. It's not going to happen again. Of course it's going to happen again. You know, like we're not perfect. And we've already obviously have this door open to this particular pattern. So it's very difficult to stop it because apparently our soul signed up to kind of learn this. This is what they want to learn. They're like, okay, this is what I'm going to learn this time around. And the human in us fight this a whole lot. A human in us is like, no. Humans, we can figure this out. We've got brains too, but
that's me.
yeah, exactly.
Now I know.
Exactly.
Now I know. Oh, and this is really good because this is the thing. It's like I've been beating myself up so badly over the past few weeks because I was like, I should have known, I should have seen. My gut was telling me this, and then it was actually I'm seeing. I think you know, but I just recently started dating again.
I saw, yes.
Yes. And this person actually, yeah, so I was venting about this, like, but in a way that like I was beating myself up. I was like I'm trying not to be like most anger is towards myself because I should have known this, and like these were the sign. Why did I not see the red flags? And then, she said this thing. She said, but she said the reason that you kept up with this so long is because instead of going with the red flags and go like, well, yeah, this is going to be a huge disappointment, at least you tried. And you kept caring about the people that you were working with. Like you kept caring. You didn't want to give up. And I was like, why didn't I just give up? Why not just give in and surrender and let it go when I saw all those things happening? And she was like, but like, this just means you care. Maybe you care too much, but it just means that you care so much. So could you look at it from that perspective, that it's just, there's maybe too much love instead of you being stupid. You're just, and I was like, oh, this is interesting because like for me, it was like, I don't, like this is the whole Gabby Bernstein thing, right? Look at it through fear or look at it through love. And I was like, oh, wait a second. So I didn't agree to work with these people out of fear, which was that's what I thought, right? But maybe I did start to work with them through fear because I mean the promises were very nice, and I was like, yeah, I could use that. But the reason I stuck with them throughout the very, very messy end was not out of fear, but because of love. So that was like, so I mean, I'm very blessed to have someone in my life right now who just goes like, you know what, you're beating yourself up, but what for? Because you love them too much? Maybe you need to cut yourself some time.
Exactly. And also maybe you had to go through these other experiences to let this person into your life. Because if you hadn't gone through these experiences, you wouldn't have listened to her. You would have been like, yeah, whatever.
Good point. Yeah. And this is the thing. So it's all surrendering to the whole, like there's a plan, right?
Exactly. And this is also where, and I mean, I've got a lot of friends who are into the woo and a lot of friends who are so not into the woo. But I'm also like, it doesn't matter if you're into the woo or not. The whole idea of there is a plan and you're where you're supposed to be also lets you take control while at the same time stops you from becoming a control freak. Because this is also my problem. I always have this problem where I'm like, I like to be in control to the point of being a control freak. And when you were talking about collaborations earlier, this is my problem with collaborations, is that I'm like, yeah, same thing. I'm like, I don't share well with others in the sense that I'm really happy to be like, take whatever you want, but leave me alone. You know what I mean? Like, yes, I want to work on my little section of the project and I will give and give and give and give, but don't try to come in here and take my little spot and do what I'm doing. I'll give it to you before I actually work with you. So that's my issue. I've got this problem where I'm not very good at, I'm much more backing off and being like, here, take it. But
that resonates with me. Yeah, no, that absolutely resonates with me. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is something too, and I think this is also something that I need to learn. But in terms of then going with control and like trusting in the universe, whether it's a true plan or not, I can go with, I need to try. Life is really about trying, and I believe that. And same with like, if you choose fear, okay, next time you choose again. I think that's the important part there, that you're like, I recognize I chose fear. I'll take a lesson from that, and now I'll move forward, because we'll always choose fear at some point. Like it's always a cycle. And I think sometimes when you're at the most confident, you're like, I got it figured out. Yes. Boom, it comes your Smackdown, and you're like, oh, how did I not see that? I thought I had it figured out. You know what I mean? And I think as long as you have a trust, whether or not you truly believe that there's a universe plan, or if you just truly believe you're human and you'll never get it perfect, because both are true for me, you just can
Mhm.
roll with it a bit more and be like, okay. And I think as writers especially, I don't know, because I'm so guilty of this. As a writer, I fight it. I want to be perfect. I want to be perfect. I want to be perfect. At the same time, the best writing, the best experiences come from that messy middle, that ooey gooey confusion. I mean, you think about the best books, they're not happy books from page 1 to page 300 and whatever, you know, like it's full of conflict and pain. And
Yeah.
how do you think they figure this out? They don't write from this because they're like, I've had a perfect life and I write perfect things the very first time I type.
No.
Of course not. You know, it comes from the pain. It comes from writing bad drafts. It comes from having your heart broken, or watching your best friend have her heart broken, or, you know, it just from pain and being in contact with it. You need to be able to communicate that. And all humans have it. And this is something that I think what I don't like about the whole Instagram life is that it definitely pitches just this one little tiny aspect that we seem to believe. And I don't understand why so many people gobble this up, because I've had the experience of working for some super rich people, some celebrities, and I know that their Instagram pages are perfect and they are so
Yeah.
miserable at home. So
Yeah.
miserable at home. So stop judging your life based on whatever you see or you think or you perceive, because everyone has pain. There's not a single person on this planet who's not wrestling with someone, something, everything, you know. And same with, it's also why I finally managed to give up, you know, the whole dieting culture, because I was like, even the women whose bodies I want bitch and complain about not having the body they want. So I was like, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm out. I'm out. You know, it was like permission for me to be like, oh, I'll just live the life I want. And when you kind of like then surrender to that, when you're kind of like, you know what, I can only control me. There's no one else out there. As much as you want to believe other people can actually do something for you, you're like, no, you're the one in your head. It doesn't matter who you love or don't love or who loves you. It doesn't matter. In the end, you live your own life. And I think, I got off on a tangent now, but in the end, I think that helps when you kind of like give up that control a little bit. And for me, surrendering it to the universe was a way of giving up my control freakness, of being able to say, okay, whether it's a universe out there or just trusting in being human, I need to let this go a little bit and just experience life, give myself permission to make the messy mistakes, and just hold myself to being honest. I think as long as we hold ourselves to being as honest as possible for as long as possible, and then to admit when we start lying to ourselves, we're doing pretty good.
Yes. Yeah, I think that is, and I think for me that is what like the whole daring to surrender to the universe has brought me, is that I was always worrying about what other people were thinking. And
Mm-hmm.
now like now my most the question I ask myself most often is this aligned with me? Is this me?
Yes,
Where am I in all
exactly.
this? And that's the so, but the funny thing is, like, this sounds, I mean, this can sound so much more selfish because you're no longer focusing on others but on you. But the connections I have made since I made that shift, at least they're real connections. Like, I have to think of what Brené Brown says about the difference between fitting in and belonging. Because she's like fitting in, and I was always
Yes.
trying to fit in. And fitting in, of course, is and it's so funny because we should be talking about the giveaway, and we're absolutely not. Like, this is people, this is just me and Sherrie.
We haven't talked in so long. My life did get pretty
Yeah,
complicated for a
just
little bit.
just 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 go with it. I'm sure there's some wisdom somewhere. Just go with it. But Brené Brown goes like, Brené Brown goes like, so fitting in is constantly being on the lookout. Like, okay, how should I act? How should I behave? What should I say? What should I be wearing? What should I? And that's not
Mm-hmm.
belonging. That's fitting in. That's trying to fit yourself into some mold. And I'm assuming the mold is between your ears as well,
Oh
right? It's
yeah.
all in your head. Um, and they said true belonging is, this is me, and then see what shows up. And like, I've been
Mm-hmm.
practicing that for about the past 2.5 years or so. And I mean, the people I have in my life now, and that I think is what tripped me up so much with this teamwork thing, is that I now assume that everybody who shows up is aligned with me. And of course, that is not the case.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that is of course not
That's a
the
common
case. Yeah.
mistake. Yes.
Yeah.
Because I think this is something also that happens. Is you trust the universe, you trust what's being thrown your way, it has to be for your own good. and I always believe it is kind of for your own good, but it might also have to be make you think for yourself your own good. You know what I mean? Like it might be
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Where
So
just
I'm,
don't,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
don't just trust
And I will
everything. But
get
yeah,
it.
I mean,
Yeah. And I will
like,
get to
and
the point. Yeah. And that's honestly, I just did a reading for somebody because I
mhm,
started doing these tarot readings for people. And I
I
just,
love it.
before we went online, I finished a reading for somebody. And one of the results for this guy was actually, and it sort of resonates, um, because I also already see like all the good things that I got from that collaboration, even though it ended
Hmm.
so messy. Like I did
Exactly.
learn an awful lot, and not just like the bad lessons, but I learned a lot about myself in a good way. So there were also positive sides to it. It's just, it just ended badly. And I had the same advice for this guy because I pulled the Six of Cups. Was the Six of Cups? The Six of Cups for him, I think. Um, and like for me, the interpretation was that you're allowed to move on while not dwelling on, but reveling in the good memories and all the good stuff that something brought you. But, and this is the
Hmm.
thing, the same mistake I made with the teamwork, just because all these good things happened as well, doesn't mean you should remain stuck and paralyzed and hoping for things to turn around. You can both like love the stuff that happened and see all the good it brought you as you decide, but that's no longer where we are, so I need to move on right now.
Yes. And I
Yeah.
think this might be a culture problem. We're not taught how to take the good with the bad, to sort through it and take the lessons from both.
Yeah.
I think we're taught
Yeah.
as a culture this shininess, like it's all shiny and pretty. I mean, if you watch Disney, even the deaths are done in 10 seconds. Oh, they're dead, let's move on. And the
Yeah.
deaths are
It's not.
massive deaths. They're parents, they're caregivers. It's the people who, your whole life. And of course, in terms of fairy tale structure, it's important that your previous life is erased so you can go on the adventure to move on to the bigger and better, becoming the hero you're supposed to be. But the way it's dealt with, I mean, real fairy tales are nasty. They are nasty, dirty things that make you scared and give you chills. And afterwards, you still fist bump because you're like, I can't believe this person got through this. And that's the real lesson that's supposed to come from fairy tales. That's why we've been telling these stories forever, is that you're supposed to watch these and go, this was horrible. They survived. They became stronger because of it. They got warrior plate because of these horrible events happening to them. But our new fairy tales, these sanitized versions, basically have the person's world destroyed in 10 seconds. No one talks about it again, and off they go on their merry way to have, of course, a happy ending, which is going to happen no matter what. And I think this does us a massive
Yeah.
disservice in our storytelling. Our entire culture is built around this whole shiny, and then when horrible things happen to us, we don't know what to do. We don't know how to deal with it. We're like, but this isn't supposed to happen. And it
Yeah.
is supposed to happen. We've just taken away the power of storytelling, the whole purpose of storytelling in our culture. We've taken it away and made it into perfect, 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 perfect.
Yeah.
And this is why I think we have so many difficulties and we're struggling with this. Hi, Stephanie. Is because of that exactly, that we have this issue of expecting things to be perfect and shiny, and we're not able to take the negative and go, well, this is horrible and this is nasty, but because of this, I've got a strength. I've now turned this
Yeah.
into a weakness has become a strength, and it was horrible and it involved blood and pus and breaking bones, but now I am stronger because of it. But we kind of
Yeah.
skip over that part, and I think that's a horrible disservice we do to ourselves.
Yeah. And you know what? Actually, what you're saying is because we focus so much on the shiny, when something bad does happen, we completely demonize that. And there are so
Exactly.
many, and actually it's very counterintuitive because recently like so many articles have been popping up, like if you have your villain in your story, I love how we're now talking about storytelling. It's it's all yeah. Oh, hi Stephanie. Oh, you already saw her, right?
Yeah.
Hi. So it's like so many things, like so many articles have been popping up about, make sure that your villain is not just some demonic character with no positive traits. Like, don't forget that your villain in their own story is actually the hero. So make
Mm-hmm.
them like give them their own trauma. Don't make them one-dimensional. But it's really weird how I remember when I got a divorce, and people are just like, because for multiple reasons, we remained in the same house for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And people were like, and I'm like, we're getting a divorce. We don't hate each other. It's not like it's just over. Like it's just time to move on. It's just, it wasn't working anymore. It's for our highest good, both of us, that we move on from this. But that doesn't mean like we are tearing each other apart or
But people want you
because
to. They want to understand that. Because I think also in
yeah,
this case, a lot of people stay together who should actually break up because they're afraid of hurting the other person or because it's just okay. Like it's not bad. It's not the
yeah,
best, but it's not bad.
nobody's getting physically hurt. So yeah, nobody's hitting
Exactly.
anybody. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Hmm.
dying a slow death inside, but isn't that normal? And that's the problem. No, slow
No,
deaths
it's not,
inside are
Sherry.
not
No,
normal. It's not normal. Stop,
no.
but we accept that, it's kind of
Mhm.
like, of course, this is what happens, and at least I have somebody. And again, it goes back to what you said earlier with the whole Brené Brown thing of fitting in versus belonging. Most
Yeah.
people would choose to fit in, you know. I mean, I call it the golden cage, the fact that people would rather be locked
Yeah.
inside something shiny on the outside. And when people walk by, they look at you and go, well, at least you have a beautiful house, you've got someone who loves you,
Yeah.
and why are you complaining? You have a job, you have food. What else do you need? Well, I need lots. I need adventure. I need excitement. I need to feel alive.
Yeah.
I want the danger. I want to, of course, you're taking a chance it's not going to work out. Life is about dying. Like in the end, no one gets out alive. So, you can either like hold your cards close and hope, or you can live out loud and put your cards on the table and go for it. But that's scary, and it's raw, and it's vulnerable, and it leaves you open for people, especially in this Instagram age, to look at you and go like, haha. At the same time, the people who are looking at you going, haha, are the ones so locked in their own cages they'll never get out, and they're just upset that you're out
No.
there. So
Mm.
you should never let them stop you from living the life you want. But unfortunately, their voices are the loudest because the people who are out there living their lives aren't looking at you and commenting. They don't care. They're out there living their own life. But because of
Yeah.
that, it's quite difficult to hear those voices. Often we just hear the negative voices. We hear the people who are telling you no, look at the people who want to laugh at you, and because they're unfortunately loudly miserable people, where most happy people aren't running around screaming at the top of their lungs how fantastic you are because they're too busy being in love with themselves. And that's okay. You know what I mean? Like, but we just
Yeah,
need to
it's
accept
good,
that.
man. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
We need to learn that
Yeah.
it's okay to actually be totally in love with yourself. It goes back to what you're saying too about being a little bit selfish. It's not selfish though. We've just been taught that it's selfish. Happy
Yeah.
people are not selfish people, but they have healthy boundaries. And there's a very big difference between a healthy boundary and a selfish person. And we like to kind of
Yeah.
pitch it as that. But I mean, we talked a little bit this with Kate Donnell on the Creative Spirits podcast on boundaries. But one thing we really honed it on was the fact that at first, what looks like rude and negative is if you hold strong to your boundary, you're giving the other person permission to stay strong to their boundary too.
Yeah.
Because you're confused at first and you're like, wait, but isn't that what a friend does? No, actually. It's one thing to have an emergency. Yes, friends show up at 2 o'clock in the morning. But if you're having an
Yes.
emergency every single day for 3 years and expecting your friend to keep showing up at 2 a.m. for 3 years straight, that's no longer an emergency. That's a massive boundary violation. And you're asking the
Yeah.
other person for things that you should not be asking the other person for. And now it's totally okay for the other person to be like, no, actually, I stopped this
Yeah.
here. You need to do something else. And of course, at first, the other person's mad and upset and goes, wait, no, you've changed the boundary on me. I'm angry at you. That's not fair. This is not the way the rules go. But then by holding true to that boundary, you allow the other person to be like, actually, okay, you know what? When I sit down and actually think about it, work through my anger, again, work through it, not be afraid of looking at it
Yeah.
and seeing what it's telling you. Because we're
You
afraid of
don't
anger
skip
too,
over it. You work through it.
Angry, so it's the other person's fault. Sometimes. Not always. And it's really difficult for us because we've
I'm
not been
absolutely
taught
scared
this
of my own anger. That's true. Yeah.
very thing. And we've been taught not to, again, the dark. We're completely hidden from it. We're never told where the strengths from the dark comes from and where the weaknesses are. We're just taught it's weakness. It's weakness, it's weakness, run away. And so I think that when we sit down and look at that, though, we start realizing, okay, I've actually been taught things that are not true, or I believe things that are not true, and that's okay. And I think it causes a little ripple effect. But to be that first person to start the ripple effect and to stay there when people are like, no, I still don't believe you, that's scary. I mean, we're human beings. We're basically meant to be in herds together. And the person who goes off by themselves in our genetic brains dies. So Of course, now you can be by yourself. You can leave your house. Thanks to Amazon, you can pretty much live in a corner and never communicate with a human being for the rest of your life if you don't want to with an internet. But that's not what our brains are telling us. Our brains are still, thousands of years old going, if you're by yourself, you will die. So this is why we have such a struggle, I think, with fitting in and belonging, because belonging used to be death. Whereas now belonging is actually the next level up. We've gotten past that part. We don't need just to fit in. We can totally belong. But our brain is still back centuries going, but we'll die by ourselves. We need as many people as possible to live. And I think this is something that we also sometimes sit back and go, okay, is this lizard brain talking to me right now? Or is this my higher evolved brain talking to me right now?
Yeah. And this is the thing, it's like actually funny because for me, like being able to fit in and have enough people around you, that made sure that you made it.
Yes.
But now I feel like we're on this level that just constantly trying to fit in instead of belonging, that's actually what causes the death. Like this, like you said, like the slow death inside. So we evolved, people. we moved on from that. Yeah, that's why we are in some like we are in this. Yeah.
I think we need to give ourselves permission to change too, because it's steps. Sorry.
It's
yes, it's after 10.
I think it's definitely the permission, like for me, but it's permission for everything. For me, it's like permission to be angry. Like that's such a difficult thing for me because I want to be this kind, all-loving person, but I also know very well that anger is always a boundary issue, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and you're allowed to be kind and loving and be a boundary person.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like I have to constantly tell myself, like when I'm angry and I feel anger, it's a boundary thing. And of course, I'm responsible as well that my boundaries are being overstepped. But it doesn't mean I cannot be angry to the person who overstepped the boundary.
Exactly.
It's a double thing. Yeah. Yeah. So that's
and I think the important thing is like how you react. You know what I mean? Like if you call up the other person and start screaming right off the bat, you escalate it right up, then you've overstepped the boundary, but you can call them up and be like, look, this is how I'm feeling and I'm angry about this. And maybe the other person didn't even know, and they're like, oh my God, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you feel like that. Boom, done. Whereas if you pick up the phone screaming, I mean, this is what I say with my kids all the time. You're allowed to be angry. You're totally allowed to be angry. I'd be angry too. How you deal with that anger, that's what we need to talk about. And I think that's important that as humans, we've always been taught, again, no, just bottle the anger up. No, sometimes anger is really important. And this is something too that sometimes the Lightwalker community, I'm like, no, guys, get angry. Like it's okay to
that's
be
a whole
angry.
discussion on positivity as well. Like there was a recent thing on Facebook, like the difference between like positivity movement and spirituality or something. I don't know what it was called, but the difference
something
between
like toxic positivity or something, like the difference between it was so good. I really, really like that.
That's really such a thing. Like, I don't know if you shared my post or I shared your post, but there was something going on there.
Don't even
and I was
know.
like, but this is like, but that's exactly this is ended. But I think for a lot of people, and this is what you said, because you said like we see the dark as weakness, right? But I also think we're so afraid of the dark because we're afraid that it will overpower us.
Exactly.
And that for me, like I'm always afraid that if I let my anger really go, that it will be like, I'll burn everything down. But in fact, of course, once I let my anger out, that's like maybe 3 minutes of really feeling it.
Exactly.
And then it's released. And I'm like, well, this was it. But the thing is, if you do allow it to bottle up, that's when it becomes
then it might burn everything down.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you just process it. But this is a thing for me. Like I'm so glad that I when I walk out there right now, there is a pool. And basically how I let go of this anger with this messy teamwork thing was I did a few laps, like real laps, like I was doing it.
Yep.
And in the end I just floated on my back and just like, and ask myself, so what is the big deal here? And it was just gone. So that is my anger. Like I processed the anger just by doing I don't know, 20 laps or something. And then just floating on my back for a little bit. And I was like, why am I so afraid of my own anger? This is it. I did a few extra laps.
Because you've been taught to be afraid of your anger is why. But I mean, that's pretty much everything. We've been taught pretty much everything. I mean, like I said, if nothing else. Yeah, I mean, having my own kids around, I mean, this is something that they've really taught me, is that we have learned everything, and most of it through control. You know, I can't even tell you, sometimes I've been tempted to tell my son that he can't wear a dress, not because I care about him wearing a dress, because he's fighting with his sister over this dress. And I'm like, if I just tell him, boys don't wear dresses,
Yeah.
it's gone. The conflict magically disappears.
Yeah, but
And
no,
I had to bite,
can't.
exactly, but I'm creating different problems down the road. You know what I mean? But most of us aren't thinking about down the road, especially, you're just holding yourself together. Then you're going with fire out now. You're not looking at fire prevention. You're not looking at long-term strategies. Most of us are living in the moment, second to second, and not thinking
Yeah.
about the consequences of what we say. But we are then building these little people who will later on be us going, why do I feel this way? Because it's
Yeah.
been part of our basic programming, is toxic masculinity, toxic femininity, even like this whole the boys will be boys, just be happy. I mean, I had this conversation with a friend the other day, which was, her little girl goes out to play with other little boys and they're just mean to her. And the other parents are like, of course, he's a boy. He's going to be abusive.
No, 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 no.
Exactly. But then, then at
No.
16 and 17, wondering why, oh my God, why is she putting up with such a bad boyfriend? Because she's been taught since she was 5 that that's what boys
Boys will be
do.
boys. Yeah.
Exactly. And also going with, well, the whole date rape thing. Well, how come he could be so confused? Because he's been told since he was a little boy that girls say no,
Yeah.
and then you just keep going and they'll eventually say yes. It's obvious now when you're looking back, but in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
moment, I
Yeah.
think we kind of go with, oh, it's not a big deal. But all these little moments really add up into giant deals that we need to unlearn. And I think we need to give ourselves permission that, first off, that our parents did the best they could do. I mean, at the moment, they're also products of the culture, their time, their own
Yeah.
limitations,
Yeah.
their own, mental place at the time, and then go with, but given that, I need to take responsibility to do my own deprogramming and decide what I want and what I need. And it's hard, and give myself permission
Yeah.
to realize that it's freaking difficult, that lizard brain wants me to fit in. Lizard brain's telling me I will die if I don't fit in. He doesn't care about belonging, it cares about fitting in. And that's what you need to wrestle with, because we're our own worst enemies often. Like, we think it's other people, but it's not.
But isn't it the same, like, because we have that going on for our kids. Like, I mean, I'm childless, of course, but I can empathize. Um, that you also go like, I want you to fit in as well because I see danger. Because I love it, because I know that you let him wear dresses, and I mean, of course, like
Mm-hmm.
me, I love that. Like I'm all for that. I also love these recent articles that well, not that recent, but they're popping up again. So I'm assuming the discussion is on again about not forcing your kids to hug or kiss even relatives.
Right, exactly.
Consent,
Yes. Yep.
consent,
Yep.
consent, right?
Yep.
I love that. Um, but what you're saying is like a lot of people will go like, you can't wear this because you can't wear this because you're a boy, precisely because they want to end this now. But I also
Yes.
think there are a lot of parents who do see the long term, who do see the long term in that and go like, what if he always wants to wear dresses?
Well, I mean, the original, when he first wanted to wear a dress, there was no fight. His sister thought it was fabulous. And I mean, around the house was never a problem. But the first time he wanted to wear to daycare, I was scared for him. I let him do it because in the end, I was like, okay, I need to let you go out there into the world. But part of me
Yeah,
was like, what if they make fun of him? What if they break his
yeah,
little heart because he's so proud? Like he thinks he's beautiful, and he is. There's no doubt about it. But yourself, if you go out thinking you're beautiful and then you hit that initial wave of kid horribleness of them making fun of you, because as small children, we don't have that cage yet. We're raw, vulnerable emotions wandering around that just
and
get
they'll
beat up
say
on by
whatever
other
they
people.
want. Yeah, yeah,
Yes, I mean, the good thing was it's Berlin. He came home wearing the same dress that he went in. No one said a thing, they just rolled with it. But it could have been a completely different situation. I would have had to deal with that. So I did think about that. I did actually think, okay, for his protection, maybe I should stop. But then I realized that no, actually, I'm teaching him then that what he wants to do and who he is wrong. And
yes,
in the end,
yes, yes,
that is actually much more worse than trying to protect him at the moment. But you want to protect your, I believe a lot of it comes from love as well. I think this is something that often we
Absolutely.
do
Yeah.
get confused about, that because there's two different types of people who want to protect you. Some people are jealous and they want to stop you where you are from jealousy, and they want to make sure that you don't grow because they're not. And if you grow, they get upset. And
Yes.
those people are also very difficult. But there's also the people who
Very
want to
familiar
protect you.
with those kind of people.
You know? Yeah, you know, exactly. They're out there for sure.
Right?
But there's also the people
Yes.
who want to stop you from love, and they're very difficult because, yeah, again, the sign isn't coming off. You're not getting this negative energy. You're getting pure love, and then you start doubting yourself. And I think this is also something that's problem with us, is that we've been taught to listen to the people who love us, who want to protect us, but they're protecting us from
Yeah.
their experience, not from our
Yeah,
experience.
from their own perspectives. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, I had to sit with it. But in the end, I decided, okay, well, I don't know the future. I have no idea what he's going to experience, for good or for bad. And I had to kind of teach him that who he is the most important thing. And if bad things and people
Yeah.
don't like him come up, then we'll deal with it when it happens. But trying to protect
Yeah.
him from the bad actually teaches him to push down who he is. Or, I mean, other people even, you know, like maybe when he's 20 he becomes like this uberman, you know, and he becomes like a football sorry,
You don't know. You don't know that.
sorry, but you know, maybe he
Yeah.
becomes, you know, like a stereotypical. But at the same time, if that's what happens, he's always been taught that people are people. It doesn't matter what they wear, who they love, you know, it doesn't matter. And then all of a sudden he'll be at least respectful of other people. So I figure that in the
Yeah.
end, I'm either teaching him to
Mhm.
love himself unconditionally, or at least to accept other people unconditionally. And that's worth his pride or his feelings getting hurt every now and then. But that hurt. And I sat with it a very, very long time before I came to that conclusion. Like it was
Yeah.
difficult because you want to protect your children. And I know you said you don't have children, but at the same time, the whole society is responsible for raising children. I think everyone raises children. It doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
You might not get to decide, but
Oh,
you get to
yeah.
look at them and go with either support people or not. Cause I can't tell you how many strangers come up to me and like have said something about like, is that a boy or a girl? And boys don't wear dresses. Why would you do that? You know, and you're like, back off, lady. You know, your butt's gonna punch you in the face.
Yeah,
You
no,
know?
actually, this reminds me, because this is the thing, like as a woman, I do still feel the need to sort of explain myself that like I love children, it's just not for me, right? So that's another, I think, a trauma for women in
It
the
is, and I
world.
don't think it should be.
But
But this is a totally different
yeah,
conversation too. Like I think, back
yeah,
off, keep your opinion to yourself when it comes to. You have no idea what someone's going through, whether they want to or not, and it's
yeah,
none of
yeah.
your business.
Yes,
Everyone raises
yeah,
children.
but
The whole society.
yeah, so that's my point. What you're saying, because I remember, when was it? I think it was last summer. I had my two cousins over, and they were both 13 years old at the time, and we were just we're just goofing around on the couch. They were coming over for a sleepover. Two girls, and at one point one of them asked me whether I would explain to them how women have sex together, because
Mm-hmm.
they were like, okay, so we get how two men do it. And we also get how a woman and a man do it. But two women, we just don't get it. And of course, like for me, like I was very highly uncomfortable also, because in my mind it was like, what do my aunts want me to tell them right now? I
Exactly.
was
Because you're
like,
like, wait.
is this me? Like, is this my responsibility now? But then I was like, wait a second, but they came to me and one of them asked, but they were both looking at me and they were trying to hide that they were actually really serious about the question.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
And I was like,
Yes. I
okay,
mean.
I can ruin this. I can ruin this.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can just take the responsibility that is now being offered to me. So I just explained it to them. And I went further because I wasn't aware at the time. Because actually, recently, one of them came out to me
Oh
as
wow.
bisexual. And yeah, and that was for me, like, as soon as I hung up the phone, I was crying because I was like, I did something right. And I was immediately back to that last summer going like, and this is why she trusts me. Because I stood up, like I did my
I got
part.
goosebumps.
So like, yeah, so when you say like, yeah, we all raise children, yes. I mean, and I wasn't sure her mother knew, but the next morning her mother told me that she knew that I now knew. And it was like, and apparently it's in their family, it's such an open topic.
I love it.
And I'm like, but this is great, but I think one of the reasons she feels open about it, because I've always been open to her about it being all right. Like, so that was, but for me, it was like, so yeah, I know what you say when you say, like, we all raise children, yes. Like, I could have done the cowardly thing, which I don't think would be, like, it would, like, I would call myself a coward, but I would totally understand if other people do that. Like,
I
this is
wouldn't say
not,
cowardly because again,
yeah.
it's not a
No, but for
20-year-old
me,
coming
like
to you.
I tend to beat
It
myself
was a
up, right?
13-year-old
So
and there's a
I
parent.
would, yeah, yeah, I would call myself a coward. But I was like, I'm so glad now that it was absolutely uncomfortable at the beginning, but we had such a great conversation. We also talked about the curriculum that in their biology classes, they are not taught about this, that this is a serious lack, et cetera, because so many people are actually gay or will have, even if they won't call themselves gay, like so many people will have a same-sex experience at some point, and nobody
Hmm.
tells you anything about that, especially for women. Like there is lots of talk about the risks that men have when they sleep together. Nobody knows what's going to happen when women sleep together, and nobody talks about that. So yeah, I did.
Well, no
I'm
one
so
talks about
glad.
women in general. Again, though, even with
Yes,
when you learn
yeah,
about women and men, it's what the men are going to do to you. It's never,
yeah, 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 yeah.
an
Absolutely, yeah,
active
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
participant. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was really glad, and for me that she just came out to me and saying that she likes men and women. For me, that was such a validation of being that person in her life
Like I
and
said, I got
stepping up.
goosebumps.
Yeah, well, that was really good. Okay. So is it time for us to talk about the giveaway?
Maybe, I don't know. Actually, it's been almost an hour.
Yeah, that's my point. This is going to be one of those. Listen to Mariëlle and Sherrie talk about
I say all the
everything,
stuff. I do say
everything.
all the things,
Live. And then in the end, there will be like 2 minutes on the giveaway. Same old, same old. But I love it. I love it. I mean, I mean, it's all good stuff. So it's not, but it's just like I was looking at my microwaves in front of me, and I was like, have we been here for 47 minutes? Oh my god.
Yes. But
Okay,
it's actually a
sure.
perfect way to go to the giveaway because the course is basically approaches it as life is life. You don't have like a writing segment, you don't have a goal segment, you don't have, a work, and that the whole thing works together, and you need to kind of like the whole balance is a myth type thing. That there's no such thing as balance. It's what you want to do with life, what's important, and then going for it. But helping you decide along the way. Because, of course, especially at first, it's very confusing. Or if something happens and you take it back. I mean, for the last 2 months, I haven't done any writing whatsoever. Like there was an event in the family, and everything just gets thrown out of whack, and you realize, okay, well, right now it's not important anymore. It is important in the long term, and I actually have plans for July 1st to kind of hit the ground running again. And this week is my permission to do nothing. I'm home in Newfoundland and I'm doing nothing this week, except for this. This is different. Like, but the point is, I gave
This is
myself
work,
permission.
right?
Exactly, right? This is,
Yeah, yeah,
but this is actually the kind of work I want. Like this is what I want to build
yeah,
my
yeah.
life around, is talking to people I love about topics I love, and then actually being able to make a living from it. So it's perfect. Or also to be able to take this break and realize, okay, I'm allowed to take this break. It's okay. The world didn't end. And it doesn't mean I'm not a writer, because for 2 months I said, I can't deal with this right now. We need to deal with my family. We need to deal with what's going on here. We need to, give myself permission to be like, right now I can't write, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And if anything, I'll probably be able to write a whole book from it afterwards, but to give myself that processing time. And so that's basically what the course is about. Starting out with your goals, finding out what you want, but then learning how to live with it, basically, to work with it, hitting your goals no matter what. I mean, if this was a case of I had a deadline and no matter what, I needed to hit this deadline, well, then I would have then worked out, okay, how do I get this in? How do I have my hour no matter what? To just be like, get the words on the page. And I think this is also very important to realize, okay, am I at a point where I need to have this deadline? I need the words on the page no matter what? Or am I at a point where it's okay to just take a break and come back to it later?
Well, that's the thing as well. It depends on what hits you. Because I think for a lot of people, and that was a struggle for me, that like in my coaching, because I'm not a lazy person. So if I'm not doing the work, something's in the way. But it took me, I don't know how many clients it took me before I realized some people do have, like, I still don't like the word lazy, because I do believe
Exactly.
that if you feel fully fired up about where you're going and there are no blocks, you'll do the work. You'll come to the work every day and be happy you can do the work. So I don't necessarily, I still don't believe in the concept of being lazy,
Mm-hmm.
but I have
Thank
come
you,
to
Stephanie.
realize that there
Enter.
are, she already did. She was
Okay, good.
not the first, but one of the first people. She's
Okay.
already here into the giveaway. Yes. Um, no, so it was for me like to realize that for some people do that. They sit on the couch all day and they watch Netflix. Like my television has never asked me, am I still? I don't even have a television at this point, but my laptop never asked me, are you still watching this?
Exactly.
So it took me a long time before I realized that some people actually have that. They have that. It's easier for them to do nothing
Mm-hmm. But
than
again,
for others. Yeah.
and this is what I like about the course. It's actually then about why are you doing nothing. So it
Yeah.
doesn't matter where
Yeah.
you are. Like it's actually much more about introspective journaling, going deep, and finding out what stories am I telling myself about this. So
Yes.
why am I really watching Netflix all day, wishing I was a writer? And then maybe you don't really want to be a writer. Maybe you want it to be a hobby, and that might be something the course
That's
actually brings
also
out from
cool.
you. And all of
Yeah.
a sudden you're like, okay, well I give myself permission then to watch Netflix and just write whenever I want, because it is a hobby for me and it's not something that I want to do as a living. Or yeah, I think this is also important, not to beat yourself up all the time, to realize,
Yeah.
okay, this is something I would like rather than I want. And I think this is also, I think it was Ken Robinson's wrote a really great book, and I can't remember the name of it though. But that's basically what it came down to, is that a lot of people would like to do things, would like to be a piano player, would like to be a writer, would like to be, a marathon runner. But few people are willing to actually say, I want to commit to this and do what needs to be done. And that's
Yeah.
fine. There's nothing wrong with that. We can do anything. We just can't do everything. And I think this is the important thing to remember. What is my passion? What is it that I want? And to kind of go with what do I need today, which can also change. And all of a sudden go, well, actually, these are my goals and I'm not hitting them. Am I more upset that I'm not hitting them? Or am I more upset that I'm telling myself I should be hitting them and I'm not? And that's a very big difference. And if you're like, you know what, I'm actually more upset that I think I should be hitting them, I'm not, you need to change something. Whereas
Yeah.
if you're actually upset you're not hitting them, like, no, I really do want to do this writing, but for some reason I keep telling myself after this Netflix episode or after this or after that, like I keep procrastinating, but I really want this. Well, now it's time to sit down and start looking at your stories and start looking at, what am I telling myself? What am I afraid of? Deal with this first, and then you can go on and do the writing, because you do want to do the writing, but you've got all these blocks. And I think we really need to
Yeah.
appreciate that these blocks are real. They're based on stories we've told ourselves, or our friends have told us, or our family, or what we've grown up with, blah, 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 blah. But you need to go at that foundation and decide, where is it wonky before I can build my house? Because if you kind of go
Yeah.
with, I always
Yeah.
go with, goal setting is often like diets. If you're not dealing with the real issues, if you're just dealing with the top part, then you're going to have a really great month and it's going to fall apart on you at week 6. Whereas if you
Yeah.
kind of go, okay, I'll have a slow start, but I'm going to go down in that wonky basement and find out what's wrong and fix it. So even though you might
Oh,
be behind
yeah.
2 weeks in, you'll have the long run. You'll be able to complete the marathon.
I have that like right now. Like I have so my 3-month writing program, the spring edition, is coming
Mm-hmm.
to an end slowly. And one of my participants just at this long email going like, I cannot believe, that was the first email. She was like, I cannot believe that this is almost done. Like there was so much more. I wanted to do this. I feel like we barely cracked the surface, etc., etc., etc. And then I just replied. This was during our weekly check-in. I just replied and I was like, well, you know what? If I see you like in the responses that you give, like in the worksheets that I have every week, like you've grown so much. You've become so much more positive. You found out strategies that don't work for you. You found out strategies that do work for you. So you are in love with the writing process again. Um, yeah, so that means a lot to me. That's what I wrote her back. Like that's what I see. And then I got the email back, and then the email was just like her summing up. So it's a perspective switch. It's like, oh yeah, wait a second, because now it's like I like, you know, because of this, I feel the confidence that I can do this. And I was like, oh, so she just needed me to say, well, actually, maybe she needed permission for me.
Exactly.
Yeah, but she also felt like we're just on the surface, and I'm like, but we've done so much deep work. And this is
And
why I do this 3-month program, because you know what they say, like it takes
exactly.
about 100 days for a habit to fully form. So we need time to sit with this and to dive deep and see what comes up. But it was just like, it might feel like we only cracked the surface, but the stuff that's been pouring out that she's been processing and it's not, and that's what in her email as well. It's like it didn't only affect my writing, but it affect how I deal with my work, with my other, like with my relationship, with other stress that comes up in my life. It's like, so it might feel like it's just a surface thing, but it helps her in all aspects of her life. So I'm like, you're doing good. It's all good.
Yes,
Yeah, and we're building
exactly.
something that will enable her to keep going when we're done. And that's all I want. Like, I don't want people to be dependent on me for the rest of their lives. Like, it would be nice
Exactly.
financially, people were. But I prefer people to at one point go like, thank you for this. I figured out what was wrong. I'll see you later. And I'm like, yeah, I'll catch you later. Hopefully on some
Exactly.
book signing or something. Yeah. Yeah. So I see
I
that the whole slow building up of things, and then creating something sustainable. Yeah. So that's what your course is
yes.
about as well. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think and it's also about realizing that maybe we do want that shiny fast start, but accepting that, okay, I want the shiny fast start. I want all these things, and it's okay to want. But once you get all your wants down on paper, how do we step back, go, okay, now how do I build this roadmap? How do I actually go long term? How do I make this sustainable? Because the
Yeah.
wants are very short lived, you know, like we have to accept that if what we really want might take years to build, and
Yes.
that's okay, you know.
It is. Yeah.
It's also the permission to be like, 1 second, I think there's a bum that needs to be wiped. 1 second, baby. That might actually be a note. I'm coming.
Well,
Exactly, it might be appropriate. There's a bum that needs to be wiped. You can do this. Start building.
Yes.
Sweetie, I'm coming.
Okay. Sherrie, you go do your thing. Thank you so much. People, sign up for Sherrie's course, enter the giveaway, and we'll talk soon, baby.
I don't know how to leave. Okay, bye-bye. I'm coming.